So thank you everybody for joining. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the cybersecurity skills and other skills needed to work in the cybersecurity environment. Next slide, please. So cybersecurity market, DCMS, which is the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, which is responsible for security, did research and estimate that the current value is 8.3 billion. Now, this is forecast to grow 47% in the next 3 years. And on a global level, there is a current market is $170 billion worth of income, turnover, etc. for all of the cybersecurity companies, and that is forecast to raise by another 100 billion within 6 years. Now, 58% increase. So that is a significant growing market, as I am sure you'll be aware, and that's even with or taking into account some of the recent developments in the working sphere. Next slide, please. So from cybersecurity skills, again, DCMS recently did a survey of people working in the industry and in the sector, and they have identified 43,000 full-time employees or equivalent that currently work in it just in the UK. Which is good, and obviously a significant number there, quite a big employer. However, they also found that within the wider environment, 48% of the employees, companies had a shortage in basic skills within cybersecurity. So that means that they could not operate up to what is in effect Cyber Essentials qualification, which is an entry-level sort of protection of your data that should be done on for every organisation. And then additionally, there was a recognised gap of 30% of companies, that's 480,000 companies said or identified that they did not have the right skills to, for example, configure their IT systems or firewalls, etc., to protect the organisation and their data. So 30% of all companies in the UK having gaps is quite important. But I think even more surprisingly, within the cybersecurity sector, so this is companies who operate in the cybersecurity field, they have 64% of those questioned within that sector identified that they didn't have the right skills in-house, or they couldn't get them. And I think quite surprisingly or alarmingly, 25% of those said that that lack of skills, that gap, is preventing them achieving their business goals. And given that this is such a significant industry, being able to have the right skills to grow, to develop, to help meet those targets or those forecasts that came out is a significant gap. Next slide, please. So last week I did a quick search on a couple of the big job sites that are out there. I'm sure you've all heard of the three that I've picked, and I just typed in cybersecurity. And as you can see, there were, sort of taking the middle or the mean, over 1,000 available jobs that were currently being advertised across the cybersecurity. So there were lots of different roles there. However, just typing in cybersecurity showed that currently there are 1,000 roles out there that are available for people to work in the cybersecurity. So again, this just, I think, is a further highlighting of the gap and how that needs to be fixed. Next slide, please. So cybersecurity roles, one of the main jobs that comes up on their search engine is called a SOC analyst and manager. Now that is a SOC analyst, for those who don't know, is a security operating center analyst, and they are the teams that will be responsible for identifying issues or incidents with the IT within the organization, finding out or working out ways to resolve those or to progress fixes and sort of manage the fixes it's going along, and then also looking at the how they can prevent these issues, prevent cyber attacks happening. So there are lots of jobs about this. It is very much seen as a key area at the moment. However, all of these other roles are out there as well. So just taking one of those selection, the security trainer, there are people who are advertising jobs for training people within the cybersecurity, bringing up the awareness of the skills. There are disaster recovery and business continuity people or roles available that can be applied for, and that is business continuity is effectively quite important at this moment in time, given the fact of COVID has impacted a lot of organisations. People who used to work in an office now work remotely, and there's a big change into the way people operate. So these are a large selection of the roles that are out there. Now, I have arbitrarily grouped those up into technical and non-technical roles. So on the left-hand side, we have a list of those roles that require technical understanding, but there are also cybersecurity non-technical roles, people that are roles that will not require detailed technical understanding, but do need sort of a core understanding of security going forward. Next slide, please. So base skills. One of the things that me as an employer within the cybersecurity area are looking at the skills that the team members that I employ and that are available in the market and I interact with on a regular basis are very, very important to the operation. And these involve being able to converse to both technical and non-technical people, being able to translate technical findings into non-technical, that ability to talk and explain issues is important. I'm sure we've all been approached by relatives or friends asking for advice or issues on how to fix something IT, and having to translate it into something that is easy for them to understand and them to fix. My mother-in-law, for example, I'm her IT support. Now, if I start talking about firewalls and VPN connections, it's completely lost on us. So I have to translate that into non-technical speak, non-technical jargon. And one of the other things is, particularly in the cybersecurity area, it's yes, there will be issues that we face and identify on a regular basis. However, we've got to be able to look at the bigger picture as well. So a key skill is being able to focus on your task, but understand how that fits into the wider issues. If there are any impacts of things that you decide to do, or can say, for example, a technical control you want to implement, how's that going to impact the user? How's that going to impact the day-to-day operations of the business? Next slide, please. Technical skills. This is something that I wanted to bring out because technical skills, everybody looks at what technical skills they could bring to the cybersecurity sphere. Now, if I mention technical, a lot of people think about certain products or certain technologies that are out there at the moment. But from when I started working, the technology has significantly enhanced, and skills that I learned as a graduate a long time ago just aren't needed anymore from a programming perspective. And I think it's being aware that we are trying to keep pace with how technology is evolving. Now, as I said, the work I've done has changed a lot over time. At the moment, cloud security skills is definitely the fashionable statement, being able to talk about how organizations move from the old style in-house or data center hosted solutions to transferring it to some of the AWS, Google, Microsoft cloud data centers. That's definitely the fashionable skill. However, are they going to be there in 10 years? We don't know. Will everybody have moved? So I think from my point of view, it's the core security skills that are preferable. So being, as an example, being able to talk about the functions of a firewall rather than knowing what a Cisco or a Juniper firewall is, I think is more important. So it's those security skills that we should be looking for, because they're skills that you can take going forward, irrespective of the technology that underlines it. Now, I could go into some of the training courses that are available that offer these core security skills. I don't want to take up too much of this presentation, so we will send these out following the event. But we'll go into that into a bit more detail, or you'll see those in the slide deck that will come out afterwards. So at this point, I'm now going to hand over to Ramiz, who is one of the consultants at CSP, and he will provide his view on a day in the life.
Hello everybody, thank you for joining us. My name is Ramiz and I'm a consultant at Cybersecurity Partners. I'm going to talk to you today on a day in the life of a cybersecurity professional. Next slide please. So getting into cybersecurity, I completed my Masters in cybersecurity in September 2017 at University of Bradford. I applied for cybersecurity roles for around a year, but it took me a year to get this position, but I didn't see it as a negative. I saw it more as the roles, maybe they're not the right roles for me, and the ones that are the right roles for me, I'll get responses from them companies that are advertising them. When I applied for a role at CSP, I originally applied for a different position, and then I got a call from one of the recruiters just telling me that there's another position which will be the right fit for you, and could we put you forward for that, which I said yes to, and then that's how I got employed at CSP. If I could go back into that position, there's a few things I would have done differently, such as looking at listing the skills and knowledge that them roles were asking for and trying to develop them in my own time. So training courses at home in my spare time, just to pick up them skills and knowledge that I was short on, which would have probably helped with the applications. Next slide, please. So a day in the life of a cybersecurity professional. Every day is different when you're working as a consultant at CSP. You don't have no day is the same, which is one of the things I enjoy most about my job. The work, it varies, so I might be helping clients through a certification, renewing an existing certification that's about to expire, writing reports for a client just to help them out to gain certification. So any areas I need work on, we'll write a report, list them areas down, or I could be writing content for social media. So not every day is the same, and that's what I enjoy most about my job. Next slide, please. What were my expectations? So I knew I'd learn from colleagues when I joined Cybersecurity Partners, but not as much as I've learned. And you're learning from all your colleagues, not just your colleagues that are in that are cybersecurity professionals like yourself. You're learning from your office managers, your marketing managers. You're learning skills from them as well that help you in your day-to-day roles and duties. I didn't expect to develop the existing skills like I have, as well as new skills. And I didn't expect, when you're traveling out to client site and meeting new people, you're learning from that experience as well. So you're picking up skills that are going to help you for the next time you meet new people or travel to another client site. I expected training opportunities and opportunities to develop, but there's a lot of training opportunities and different areas of cybersecurity you can go into, which I didn't expect. Next slide, please. What I love about the role. So as I mentioned about the training and development, the learning never ends. A wide range of opportunities available, and there's opportunities to meet new people and travel to client site. The next slide, please. So any sort of advice for graduate students or professionals changing career, what I'd say is use your spare time wisely. So when you're applying for jobs, don't just apply and wait for a response. Look at them applications in detail, look at the experience and the skills and knowledge that they're asking for. So there's some things you can't do anything about, such as experience, but the skills and knowledge they're asking for, there'll be a pattern. You might see a pattern with the different applications you're applying for. You're making, sorry. So if you can use your spare time wisely and carry out training and development at home, and then you can list that on your CV, and that'll make that process easier for you to get a response and get that cybersecurity role you're after. Next slide, please. Where do I see myself in the next 2 to 5 years? So I'd like to gain more knowledge and experience. So just continue like I am really, and develop and make my way up to a more senior role. When I say develop, so don't just focus on one skill, look at your technical and non-technical skills like Robert mentioned before. So that's where I see myself in the next 2 to 5 years. I'll now pass you over to Robert, who's going to go through the panel questions.
Yeah, thanks, Ramesh. Yeah, so as I explained in mine, I see the base skills as key for progression within the market because technology changes a lot. But obviously, the panel members may have different views. So if I go to, if I ask John, so what skills do you think are more important or the most important within cybersecurity market at the moment?
So there's a lot of technical skills, Robert. You mentioned AWS and cloud skills and Azure, etc., are a sort of skill of the moment. And yes, I've acquired those recently, so I think those are important. Big data, technical skills will come and go. The real skill is adaptability, which we'd be looking for in an employee. And personally, I thrive on continuous learning, and I expect it within those who work for me. We work in a very massively changing industry. Certainly, it's a industry that changes constantly. It reacts to technical change. It reacts to geopolitics. So constant adaptability is what I'd be looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I agree with that. I think so. From Melanie, I mean, if we ask you, so from Bob's business point of view and from your own personal experience, what skills do you think are most in demand?
So for me, willingness to learn. I think something that John said there might scare half the audience here, which is continual lifelong learning when they've not possibly left education yet, fills you with fear. But that learning can be podcasts, that learning can be reading materials online. So it doesn't necessarily have to be thought about as traditional routes. Don't get me wrong, that's really advantageous. But one thing that's really important is willingness and desire to want to do it, because all the skills can be taught and can be trained, and you'll be put in a position, and a lot of that will be learning what to do on the job and what skills you need once you're in that position, once you've found something that suits your personality type and what sort of things that you're into. I think I joined the industry, so I can share my age now, in 2004, 2005, way back when, and actually I knew absolutely nothing about it, but what we were teaching from a human side of cybersecurity is still very much the same things that are causing problems today. So password management, backing up of information. So there's certain elements that are consistent and don't change, and once you have that knowledge, it will go with you throughout your career. But the technology elements and keeping abreast of things is what you will find from reading sort of industry articles and things like that.
So Melanie, staying with you, what skills did you have when starting out in the cybersecurity career pathway, etc., and how have you developed your skills?
Absolutely none is probably the right answer, but what I did find is I had a really good capability and skill at translating, and what I found is that coming into the technical sort of sphere, everything was jargon based, everything was overly complicated, and to be honest with you, filled me with absolute fear. I was sort of airdropped into a room of 13 techies coming from a marketing and hospitality background and thought this is going to be the shortest career move I've ever made. And that was very much because I thought their brains far superseded mine. But what it actually happened is it's just a different language, different way of approaching things and different way of problem solving. And I just acted as a communicator. So I take all that technical jargon and translate it into a language that all the other PC-based users and online users could actually understand. And that's where the niche is in changing human behaviour.
So John, I think that point that Melanie just raised about the translation of the technical into the non-technical, is that something that you see as a skill quite often in your industry and in your company?
It's a key skill. I started completely the opposite of Melanie. I suppose I started in a technical role, but gaining business stakeholders, getting them to take what you're talking about seriously, to understand what you're talking about, you need to translate that into business language, profit and loss and risk to the actual business itself. So that translation, that ability to speak to a range of people, not just your peers, perhaps in the technical space, allows you to progress and progress to much wider careers.
I think for me, it's knowing what you are good at is more than anything else. Just have something that you know you're good at, whether that's communication, whether that's pulling a computer apart. Just know what that is and know all the other skills can be taught around it, really. So just pick one thing and then you'll be confident in whatever position you go into, something you enjoy and something you know you're good at.
So something I was taught when I moved into the area was, become an expert at something. I had a very good manager at the time. He said, "You're new to this team. It's all like third line tech support. It's all complicated. You're going to look after this, which is new to us. You will be the expert." And we did it to a peer of mine as well. We got something to look after ourselves. We were the expert on that. And that's very important, I think, for a new starter. That they start with an area they're confident in and move to the rest.
I think confidence is key. So just one thing regarding being an expert, I don't think anybody really perceives themselves as an expert. Looking out from outside the industry and you'll all see us as experts, but when we start a role, you go in it with a belief and you have to sell that belief. And I remember sitting in front of information security officers thinking they're not going to take me seriously because I don't understand their tech, but it's knowing what you do with passion. And then over time, that experience and I suppose, professionalism just comes as a knock-on effect.
Yes, I do agree with that professionalism and understanding, at least trying to identify where you should be developing, and it's having those conversations with either your managers or your colleagues as to what areas that you could potentially develop in and how you could develop, or you trying to identify a role that you could do going forwards. And I think it's important that the cybersecurity market is huge. There are a lot of roles out there. Just because you're a specialist in one area doesn't mean that you can't develop the skills that will help you in different roles and potentially progress through a certain career path. So I think that takes us nicely on to John's presentation, where I think he's going to explain a bit more about potential career progression and career pathways, etc. So over to you, John.
Thank you, Robert. So before I start on career paths, let's do a little bit of underpinning. Next slide, please. So Chartered Institute of Information Security, it sounds very grand, doesn't it? We're in a very young industry. CSEC started around about 2006. It's 14-year-old as a dedicated group of people who wanted to drive professionalism in the industry, start to create standards, start to share knowledge. One of those things that the institutes created is to drive those frameworks to drive these standards is to create frameworks. One of them I'm going to talk about first is the skills framework, and the skills framework, if you can go to the next slide, please, underpins what we talk about in roles. Now, information security, cyber security, if you want to use a current modern trend, is, we've hinted at it, it's a huge range of skills and experience, and the skills framework underpins that. If you look at the areas, there's about 11 broad areas that we try and focus on that show the width of skill within the industry, but also, the contribution back to the profession, your engagement with the organisation, your ability to lead. So if you look at a little bit more detail on the next slide, please. Lots of small words, isn't there? The skills in information security, keep saying wide. There's a place for everybody. It covers things from law, psychology, influencing how people behave en masse. Can you persuade people in a company the size of ours to actually set decent passwords and behave in a responsible way. It's one of the latest things we're dealing with. We're calling it the human firewall. So psychology and how people, how people react, really, really important. We go the other side. We go to what I do normally, into sort of computer science and networks, and you stray off into forensics, so sort of analytical behaviour, and research, pure research in universities, or applied research, something we do every day. Something applied research, that's really, really complicated. If you sit on Google and you do a good job of finding stuff out, you're doing applied research. And within any of the roles, I'll show you what in a moment. We look for these skills, and they're defined by the institute. So there's a bunch of levels of knowledge as well, and it could be start at level 1. You've read a book, you're aware of the subject, you're aware of what you don't know, which is good. That's the start of learning. Through to somebody who's level 6 and running an organisation, a lot of experience perhaps in information security built up over many years. Next slide, please. So this is a lot of skills, wasn't there? So without worrying about them, this is one of the roles which is I think this one's what's in the CSEC roles framework. And it's saying, you need previous experience as a military intelligence analyst. Great. And you sat there on this webinar going, no chance. But I can tell you, as a large employer, I work for sort of BT during the day, as it were. Those are the sorts of vacancies up on the top right-hand side that we're recruiting as graduates and apprentices. We don't expect you to be a military intelligence officer. Large companies like ourselves will grow those skills within you, and will use frameworks like the CSEC roles framework with little adjustments for ourselves, because we change things, as does any company. To grow your skills. So next slide, please. Now, these are some of the ideas or some of the roles which are available. I think Robert hinted towards them. This CSEC roles frameworks with companies like ourselves actually use as the basis for creating our own job standards and development standards, and how to get from one role to another, and the skills you have to acquire, whether those are formal certification or whether the like Melanie was saying, listening to podcasts and acquiring knowledge and working with colleagues and gaining experiential knowledge. Or things like the CCP scheme, which is it's sponsored by the NCSC, National Cyber Security Centre. It's around having formal levels of responsibility for government level systems. But even there, they've got the ability to start as a practitioner, move through senior practitioner to lead practitioner, in a variety of roles, either from technical through to more people management. If you actually want to know more, URLs on the bottom. It'll take a while to go and look at the skills matrix. It's not something that you can just jump in on 2 minutes and go and have a look at, but there's a link on the bottom. So I was going to ask a question or two, I think. Robert, I'll pick on you first. Do you see yourself able to map what you do at the moment to one of the pathways that I just showed in the career role framework?
Yes, I do, and It's something, so in the CSEC, I looked at that quite a few years ago when I was moving into more of the traditional security consultancy, and we did use that as a tracker to show how we were developing. So it's evidence that I used to my boss at the time in a large organization to say, this is how I'm progressing and these are the skills that I want to do. Do you agree with these? And again, I focused not particularly, the technology was pretty much the work that I was doing at the time. I was, sort of developing that either on the job or through specific technical courses, but I used the career pathway as effectively backup to show some of the softer skills that I needed and some of the non-technical skills and to gain approval to go on those courses. It was very handy for me to say, yes, this is what I would like to do. This is why I would like to do it. And, it's following what turned into be the Chartered Institute's view on the progression. And as part of my the work that I do as a consultant at the moment, I do work with some government sectors who look at the career pathway and they put requests in for certain types of roles. So I'm certified on that pathway against the risk advisor, so helping these organisations work with or understand what the risks are to their programs and their projects that they're doing at the moment in time, translating those into the business terminology, the business risk. What is the impact to them as an organisation if A, B or C is done or not done, etc. So yeah, I find it very useful and it's something that I would heartily recommend.
Thank you. Melanie, almost the opposite end of organisations from where I work. You're running your own business. How do you see something like the roles and the skills framework mapping into what you do?
I think it's great, and I think what it does is give people a little bit of focus of what the art of the possible is. I was really fortunate, as I say, I sort of fell into this, and I've been, because of my experience of being in the industry for so long, without any of those qualifications, I've still managed to make it to be a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Information Security, and that's proof to the work that you can do and the partnerships and the relationships and giving into the industry. And I think there's a lot within CSEC that's a real value to everybody, regardless of their point in their career. I think from a student point of view, there's a lot of value in connecting with the institute in order to be able to get good connections, to be able to get a feel, to be able to meet people, meet mentors, and get some experience of some of the masterclasses. So there's a lot in there, but it gives you something to be able to use as a bit of a bargaining tool. I know a lot of people and a lot of professionals who have turned around and said, actually, I've done what I've done to the best of my ability and I fancy a move, but I don't know where I want to move, and being able to look at the different skills and how they map against, and then looking also at the potential salaries in those areas, and they are really good salaries that are paid within those technical positions, has then shifted people to make that move, as opposed to sticking at something that they've then become a little bit stagnant and boring and lost the passion for. So it's really good for being able to open up the art of the possible.
Yeah, real. I would say don't go chasing the money all the time. There is very good salaries in security at the moment. Go for something I think that you're passionate about, that makes you live. I know you said before that continual learning is possibly scary, or possibly, I don't know, life-giving, if you will.
I think lifelong learning is great, and we all do it. But what I think people need to just, when people have just done such a long time in school and then colleges, there's that fear of, oh God, I don't think I can do any more physical learning, which is why sort of when we go on to the next section, it's talking about other routes in there that might sort of, taking on that learning that doesn't feel like the traditional learning methods that you're trying to get out of being in college and being in school all day, every day.
Absolutely. So I think, Melanie, you're talking about lifelong learning, and it all starts with apprentices and graduates and entry-level roles. So I believe you're going to talk about that. Absolutely.
So the accent might not sound particularly local. but I'm a true northerner at heart, and you know, my grandparents and everything born up in sort of Wathmund-on and in the area, so I know it really, really well. If I sort of switch on to the next screen, if that's okay. So being a true northerner, money to me was always something that I was wary of when I set up my business, in the sense of, could I justify or afford those high paying salaries of the people that I wanted on in order to grow the business? And apprenticeships were actually a really affordable way of me getting into some talented individuals with some innovation and with a desire to want to take their careers forward. So that's kind of the model in which we grew our business in the early days, and now it's a fundamental part of our business, because as I'll allude to in a little while, some of the apprentices that I took on in the early days are, you know, our leaders, our team leaders, and basically those guys that are going to supersede me when I move on and leave the business behind. So yeah, for me, apprentices and apprenticeship routes, because I was also in a really, really fortunate position in that I managed to move up my career path really, really early, because I started working when I was really young, and just being in the right place at the right time and just willing to take an opportunity. So when somebody would say to me, do you fancy giving this a go? I absolutely would. And although I was reasonably academic, it wasn't something that I could see myself doing forever. So I did very much hands-on work-based learning, and I found out that I learned a lot more, a lot quickly. And I also managed to get into roles that were high paying a lot quicker than some of my friends that had gone down more traditional routes of learning. So I actually sort of saw some advantages in that as well. So I'm going to try and give you a bit of perspective at Bob's business as to the apprenticeship opportunities that exist within our business, but within other cybersecurity companies, and just sort of challenge the mindset, because, you know, there was always an argument that apprenticeships opportunities weren't as great as university graduate positions, but you can achieve as much, if not more, through the process. So if I can go next slide, if that's okay. So as I touched on earlier, it was a really awkward slip for me coming into cybersecurity. I came from a hospitality tourism background. I'd done really, really well, really young, and dumped into this IT team. So it was a really awkward position for me. And I thought, as I mentioned earlier, the shortest lived career move I'm ever going to make, because these people don't speak the same language. It's all jargon, it's all techie, and my technical ability wasn't really there. But I found that I had this really niche part of acting as a really good communicator, and as it transpires now, 90% of information security breaches and errors are a result of human error and human behavior. And so those elements that were touched on about psychology are really, really paramount. So what we do within Bob's business is try and challenge people's thinking, challenge people's current habits, behaviors, influence those behaviors so that actually they're security assets rather than security risks to businesses. Next slide, please. So Bob's business, founded in 2007, and when I sort of put in the chat as well, before cyber was even a word, it was information security. And very much at the time, it was about understanding this framework that existed. What was BS 7799 is now ISO 27001, which looks at the people side, it looks at the technology side, and it looks at the processes side. And as I touched on, if that video will play, you can press play. Is that actually there's a real void between what people are trying to get, trying to secure within an organisation they can do through technology versus the holes that people open up. And most of the cyber criminals these days are exploiting our human behaviours and our human vulnerabilities to get to us. So this little animation that's showing is just showing an example of a phishing email, so a scam email that somebody's sending, trying to get you to hand over your username and password. And one of the problems we have that's really sort of, you know, a threat to the industry is people that reuse the same usernames and same passwords. It's habits, and we do it because it's easier. And we don't do it because we want to be less secure for an organisation. We do it just because it makes us get into our systems a little bit quicker and do our work a little bit quicker. But actually there is a mix between habits that we can change and technology. So this particular animation is showing you that actually if you enable two-factor authentication, then even if somebody has your password, they still can't get into your online systems. It's a real simple fix to a huge number of cybersecurity breaches, but not enough people do it. And that's purely because of awareness. You know, we're great opportunity that today is the start of national Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So hopefully there'll be lots of these tips going out to yourselves and to your friends and your family, just enabling people to do small things that aren't necessarily technical fixes. So don't reuse your username, don't reuse your passwords. Sorry, don't reuse your passwords. Make sure that your passwords are secure and that they're random. All these sort of things. And these are very much human behaviours and human habits. We use storytelling and animation to get people to understand how it relates to them. Because the problem with cybersecurity within organisations, people think the companies are only thinking about themselves and thinking about their information within that. But the reality is, how we behave online can really, really drastically affect our own personal lives. Because imagine going for a job or going to buy your first house and being told you can't have it because you have a CCJ or county court judgment against your name because somebody has taken out credit in your name and not paid any bills, and that ruins the start of what would be, you know, a new chapter in your life. You know, not being able to take in a job in finance because, again, you've got a CCJ, and anybody with a CCJ against their name can't actually operate within the legal or the financial industry. So all these things that people stealing your identity, which they can do through mismanagement of passwords, are all behavioural things that can really impact on you, that you would perceive not to be an organisational thing, but the habits that we do within the workplace can really, really secure our personal lives as well. So within Bob's business, we concentrate on cybersecurity awareness training, getting people to see what habits they have and testing those. Next slide, please. Okay. Oh. Next slide. So the apprenticeships that we've had, not all cybersecurity related. The cybersecurity apprenticeships are relatively new, but more and more organisations are doing them. But many of our apprentices came in aged 15, 16 years onwards, doing digital media, social media, business administration, graphic design, all qualities that businesses need. And then they've transferred over to other core areas of cybersecurity. And now, as it stands, all of our apprentices that came on board have now gone on to do cybersecurity level degrees. And this is actually, you know, doing work on a 9-to-5 basis and actually setting an amount of time to do project-based work, which they then submit as part of their college qualifications. So although they're working and they're working towards company projects, at the end of it, the bonus is they get paid, as well as having the qualification at the end of it. And it, you know, the support you get then wrapped around is you get all the support from your colleagues that you're working with and the organisation you're working with to make sure that you pass that qualification. What we found within Bob's business is that by investing in our apprentices really young, then actually, you know, we can mould them and teach them, you know, any bits of knowledge that they don't know by default, but knowing their willingness to want to learn and desire to be part of the team, actually we can teach them anything. So they go on to be, you know, whether it be content writers, animations, developing animations on cybersecurity, or whether it's actually managing our own cybersecurity infrastructure that we have inside the business. So all these positions have led to them going on to have really quite in-depth cybersecurity knowledge, but may not have seen it at the start. It was just something they had a passion for graphic design, a passion for IT, or a passion for just being a little bit more organised on the business administration side. Next slide, please. So in total, since 2013, we've taken on 15 different apprentices, and our team of 25, 26 is made up of a third of individuals that are either have been on university placements or have taken up our apprenticeship programme, which means we actually have a relatively young team when you take the average age. But what comes with this is a lot of passion, a lot of innovation and a lot of desire, and a lot of fun as well. So it's a great environment for them to work into. Next slide, please. And so here are some of our apprentices. So we have Adam, who came into customer service and started off, I think, on an IT-related qualification. The fourth one along is Dale, and Dale actually joined the organisation in 2013. He was one of my first apprentices that came through, and now he heads up the customer service team, and he helps and works with CISOs in order to implement cybersecurity awareness campaigns that really shift and change behaviours. So he's got a fundamental role of basically guiding very, very technical people in delivering campaigns that shift and change employee behaviour. And then Daisy looking at it from a graphic design point of view, of creating these really emotive animations that make stories really, really stick. So each of these guys have gone and done some amazing things. in our update, we seem to have had a little bit of switch of the picture, but the picture in the middle is should be for Anya, and Anya's our latest recruit, and she's just currently joined our tech team, and she'll be sending out in the next year simulated phishing emails. She'll be managing our information security management system, sitting on the internal audits, and basically learning from the rest of the team who have previously been in basically in her footsteps. All of them are very passionate about what they do and bring something of great value to the business. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so again, just what are they all doing past the apprenticeship that they did with us? I'd like to say that we've kept everybody on that we've put through our apprenticeship programme, but unfortunately not. Some of those, like Dale, are team leaders. Some of those people have actually gone on to do degree level apprenticeships, and then the hope is one of the guys that's due to finish their degree level apprenticeship this year will then go on to do a cybersecurity masters, and all this has been done while still holding down a role and, more importantly, earning money within Bob's business. Others have gone back to full-time university, but still in touch with the business, doing internships and projects, so they've not sort of lost touch with us. Others have gone to bigger organisations like Google and Sky Bet and doing very, very specific cyber-related roles that currently aren't available within our business. And others have gone on to be entrepreneurs as well and have set up their own companies. We've got 3 individuals that have set up in different areas, some doing phishing, some doing consultancy, and others doing sort of pen testing. So really, really proud of the guys that we've brought through, we've nurtured, and we've sort of connected with the industry. So there's so many opportunities out there, and in this region we're really, really fortunate, because not only do I sort of have a great cybersecurity company, I also run and chair the Yorkshire Cybersecurity Cluster, and that's bringing together professionals with an interest in cybersecurity to work collaboratively to see how we can address the skills gap, to see how we can work collaboratively on projects to make the region more innovative in its cybersecurity solutions, but also more profitable. And one of the things that we're looking to launch this year is a mentorship program between industry and pupils within schools, so that we can actually engage with them, providing mentorship, providing work placements, and providing an opportunity for people to get qualifications while still at school in cybersecurity. So we're looking at offering the cybersecurity EPQ, which is a half an A level, which they can do from age 14 onwards. So the hope is that they will connect with industry, have a mentor that will help go through the training, which we can then put onto the skills framework to basically increase their knowledge, and then take them through a journey where hopefully they'll continue to do placements, do apprenticeships, and hold down careers in cybersecurity within cybersecurity firms and organisations that have cybersecurity positions within the Yorkshire and Humber region. I've probably talked a little bit too much, Natalie, so I hope that's covered everything that you hoped it would, and I guess we've got some questions now. Sorry, Robert, you're on mute. Should be me.
Again, I need to get quicker on this unmuting button. So from an apprenticeship perspective, John, from your organisation's perspective, you mentioned very briefly that there were some positions that you took on from graduates, etc. Is there any, have you had direct experience of them, or any lessons that you've learned, either positive or negative, from apprentices in your organisation?
So, yeah, so I've had in my previous role both apprentices and graduates work for me. Positive and negative experiences. Well, for me, it's been, really quite positive. The guys are engaged. Apprentices don't just necessarily come from school. They might have come from somebody with a year or two doing another job, and they just come in. Same with graduates. So it's been overall a very positive experience. They come in with a great level of enthusiasm, keenness to learn. As I said before, don't chase for money. You might get a very good salaries as an apprentice or as a graduate, but don't chase the money. Do something that you're interested in. Be engaged. It'll be a positive experience. The only negative I've observed elsewhere is where the person isn't engaged, isn't able to drive their own learning. There's a lot. Yes, you do get assistance, but you've got to be independent and keen and willing to do it for yourself, and then you get help. So you've got to be engaged.
Yes, I can understand your point there. I mean, in a previous company, we had a language graduate that decided to do a sort of career change before starting work, if that makes sense. And they joined the apprentice scheme to try and learn some of the cybersecurity aspects, and they push themselves on a regular basis, not only to deliver some of the work that we were doing at the time on client sites and building up some of those professional skills, but then they were interested in looking at certain areas. And at the end of their scheme, they were with us for, I think, 18 months. But then they decided at that point that digital forensic was going to be their area of interest. So with the experience that they gained with us, they then could apply to other organisations that focus on the digital forensic side, and there was a bit more of a career path. So yes, from a positive experience, that continuous push to learn new skills, to focus on the area that they were interested in, ended up in them landing a nice job as a junior digital forensics for the police in the end. So that was certainly very a good experience for me. Melanie, from your point of view, obviously you've used quite a lot. Is there any particular skill that you would say that makes apprentices stand out, that gives you that warm feeling to sort of say, yes, you're either going to offer them a job or you can see them as a career going forward?
Definitely an inquisitive mind, somebody who wants to know more and will continually say, okay, what can I learn, what can I do? So somebody who's very sort of, again, what John was touching on, proactive. The other thing I would always say for anybody looking for any careers in cybersecurity is check out your social media and make sure you've locked down your privacy settings. I tend to do my interviews and say sort of, is there anything online that I'm likely to find that is going to make you a risk to my business? Is, because by anything you post online, by default, people in the cybersecurity industry are going to check you out on social media and see if there's anything that's going to potentially reflect badly on my business. So I tend to give them a 30-minute window from leaving the interview to going down and locking down all their privacy settings. So that's one thing, is just make sure you've got a really clean social media. Somebody who's got that sort of willingness to want to connect. Not everybody are extroverts, and I think that's really important to know. But I think it's about being able to demonstrate or showcase what you think you're good at, and show that you have a desire and willingness to do something.
Okay, thank you. I think